Thank you for joining us today on the African Policy Journal. Today we have here with us a Ghanaian businessman, and he's the current chancellor of the Cape Coast University in Ghana. Sir Sam Jonah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
It's been inspiring, just listening to you through the series we had yesterday and even the dinner.
Yeah.
And I found something quite interesting. I think we should start from there. Sure. You said in your speech, and I rephrase, that really you're done. You're passing on the leadership baton to us.
Yeah.
And you were literally charging us to be the leaders and not make the same mistakes that you made.
Sure.
What are some of these mistakes that you think we should avoid?
I think that it's very difficult to talk about specifics. The important thing is that we personally have made a lot of mistakes in terms of misjudgment, in terms of being a bit rushy in taking some of business decisions that I took and all of that. But the mistakes could have been worse were it not for the fact that we built a very solid team, which I could rely on to ensure that as a human being, there was enough mitigation to stop me from making even more mistakes than I would have made. In my personal life, I've also made mistakes. Not finding the right balance between family and work and all of these things are very, very important. Fundamentally, if there's no happiness at home, it is not likely to lead to a better work environment for you. So these are some of the mistakes that if I was doing it all over again, I'll find the right balance. And I think your level, your generation, to the extent that most couples, your generation, two couples will be working. I think that it's desperately important that you look for ways to ensure that there's correct balance and bring them the family, carrying out all your responsibilities as a father, a husband, and a mother and a wife. It's you juggle, but you must try and find the right balance, because if you don't, then a lot of unhappiness can come out of that. And some of us made those kind of mistakes, and I wish that I hadn't. Now, in terms of, that's personal. In terms of the work environment, sort of the general environment in terms of running a country, so being in a country, I think the mistake we made, our generation was too submissive. We were almost compliant. We saw a lot that was going on in our countries which were not right. But for whatever the reason, either self-interest or whatever, we imposed on ourselves a culture of silence. We didn't say these things when we should have. We didn't speak truth to power. We did not call people to account. We did not insist on transparency of our governments. And these were mistakes which have brought Africa to the catastrophe that we find ourselves in, literally in almost every African country. So I'm hoping that your generation, when I say we pass on the baton to you, your generation will not repeat the mistakes we've made. You are better educated. You are better exposed at all levels, geographically, technologically, and all of that. You must use that to ensure that you hold people to account. And it is only when you hold people to account and you speak truth to power that you will see meaningful progress being made in our countries. Too many people, my generation, have been compromised through patronage, clientelism, cronyism, and all of that. Unless we find in your generation for you to mentally overcome those temptations and focus on what is important for the collective, for the nation, you end up having a lot of money through patronage, favoritism, tribal affiliation, and all of that. But I don't think that you'll be a happy person. Because all of us, we have conscience. And when you are driving your car in a Rolls Royce, in a terrible road, which gets washed away anytime there's rain, when there's poverty everywhere, come on, if you have a conscience, you cannot be a happy person.
Thank you. I hear you, when you say that our generation is more educated or more exposed. We can, speak truth to power. But there are these dangers. How do we do that and stay alive? I see.
And I
So,
recognize
yeah.
I recognize the challenges. However, don't underestimate or underrate the power that comes from a collective. Okay, maybe our generation, we were not able to do some of the things that I'm saying you should do because we were very much acting individually. But if you were to initiate a movement, there's always protection in being part of a team. So if you have a movement and you have a fantastic opportunity here to reach out to as many Africans who've come here and who want to go back home if the conditions are right. Don't wait for the conditions to get right if you don't go and be part of making sure the conditions are right. So build the strength in the collective because that offers you some protection or security. Okay. Build connections with local universities and other movements. There are other social groups, activist groups, which want the best for this generation. Reach out, build a consensus, build a movement. We didn't do that. We were too self-serving. We were looking after our own at an individual level. And that is why Africa is where it is at the moment.
And I also see that, Africa is talented. Our young people are talented. You have said we're educated, we're more exposed, but we don't actually go back home. Most people do not go back home. We are struggling with retaining the human capital coming out of Africa. What sort of policy recommendations would you offer to attract people that have left to go back to Africa and do the work?
I'm not sure about policy. First of all, people are not going back home because the homes don't look attractive. Okay. They want to realize their ambition, their natural aspirations, they want to realize. Unfortunately, if the environment is not condign, if the environment does not allow you to blossom, then it doesn't matter what you studied here. You want. And people are making judgments. Say that, okay, if I go back to Ghana now, if I go back to Nigeria, if I go back to South Africa, am I going to make a difference? What am I really going to do? Okay. But what I'm saying is that if you are going to wait for things to get better before you go, then it ain't going to happen. You're going to be here for a very long time. And this country needs you less than your country. That's a fact. Okay. So if for your sake, for your children's sake, okay, I studied abroad, but I was anxious to go back home because home is where I belong. When you go back to Nigeria as a Nigerian, when I go back to Ghana as a Ghanaian, I feel that I'm part of the ownership of this place.
Let's touch on the underrepresentation of women in Africa generally. I saw that, going into Ashanti Gold, you definitely confronted, certain stereotypes. There is still a huge challenge of gender equity in Africa. We see it in, some conferences. You just see a picture of, maybe 50 men and maybe just 2 women in that picture. It's just, you usually just, I find it intriguing. What do you think what's the way forward?
I think, unfortunately, it's a very unfair world out there. And it's a world, the history of which has been run largely by men. And maybe out of self-preservation, protection, or whatever, they try and protect that which they have. But if you were to ask 10 men in a room, and this is based on experience of things that I've thrown out when I'm giving a speech, if you ask 10 men in a room, which person has had the most influence on their lives? They will say their mother. I will say my mother. Okay? Because a typical African mother has to juggle scarce resources to keep the family together. look back in your life. Look at all the sacrifices your mother made to keep the family together. So you start off by growing to admire hugely your mother's management skills. And remarkably, the same guys who see their mother as their hero, when they have to take decisions affecting work, they forget that, my God, a mother is not a man. Okay? They forget that their mother, who they worship or admire, they admired her because of her skills, but they somehow feel that it's just restricted to their mother. I don't like that. And throughout my life career, I've fought against that. Because I believe, and I have been proven right so many times, that if you give equal opportunity to a man and a woman, you will find that both of them will perform just as well. In fact, when I have given opportunities to women, they have excelled beyond expectation. When I say expectation, that may sound or whatever, but what I'm saying is that I don't want to, let me be bold as to say that women who have worked for me in key positions have outperformed men. So maybe I'm the wrong person to speak to, but I'm a complete convert in the leadership and management qualities of women. And look at the world around you. Look at the history of the world. When it has mattered, countries have gone back and relied on women for leadership. From Pharaoh time, okay, to more recent, when Israel was in danger of oblivion, Golda Meir stepped up to the place as Prime Minister, and look at the difference he made. When UK was on his knees, and I was there as a student, they had to call upon Mrs. Thatcher to bring it to the level that UK came out. Look at Indira Gandhi, what she did in India. In 3 years, India, which was a basket case, became the bread basket, whatever. Or they became one of the largest, in fact, if not the largest grain producers in the world in 3 years. Look at Angela Merkel, what they did in China, in Germany. When she was leaving, men were crying. But is she an oddity? Is it that when it comes to this, you will forget that Angela Merkel was a woman? Look at even in the management of the COVID crisis, the countries which have performed better are countries like New Zealand, Iceland, and all the other places which were run by women. I'm not saying that men can't do it, but what I'm saying is that don't think that you can do these things to the exclusion of women because from your own stereotype, or the way you've been brought up, you think that they are inferior. They are not. Look, when Ashanti became a public company in 1994, I engineered for 3 women to join the board. At that time, it was not fashionable. At that time, I was on a couple of London-based company boards. Not one of them had one woman. It is only now that the corporate governance code in UK is insisting on a certain representation of women on board. We were way ahead of the time because and all of them performed brilliantly. But the problem is that women tend to easily accept imposed roles. Okay, they easily accept the prejudice. Right. They easily accept the stereotypes. If I was in your position, I won't. Because throughout my career, I've been a rebel with a cause. If there's a cause that I identify, and I believe that that cause is standing in the way of me realizing my ambition or aspirations, I fight, I confront, I speak truth to power. That's who I am. I may be confrontational, but I use it. I hate inequities. I hate unfairness. I hate injustice, and I fight it. But I think that when you are if you know obvious injustice is going on in your department or wherever you're working for, and people are treating you badly because you're a woman, and you know you are performing, don't keep quiet. Yeah. Confront it. At the end of the day, when you leave the presence of your boss's office, you show the seed in his conscience.
if we talk about Africa, we can talk about so many challenges, right? But I want you, from your experience and perspective of also advising, presidents, about 5 presidents so far. What is the greatest issue in terms of leadership? What's the greatest problem?
I just wish, I just pray, I just dream that African leaders would worry about their legacy, how tomorrow will remember them. I think that when leaders don't think about how they'll be remembered tomorrow, then all sorts of foolishness prevails. Because if you worry about tomorrow, you worry about your good name. You worry about the impact that name you are leaving behind will have on your children, your grandchildren, and all of that. So you think long term. Okay. I just wish that, as I said, people would see the power, they would see the need for the collective interest to be protected and looked after than the selfish interest. The bane of Africans' problems largely is a leadership deficit across the board. Okay. I mean, just give me any African countries which are not going through serious challenges or mismanaging the challenge that they face because they don't have leaders who can do it or who are committed enough as patriots of their country to doing it. I mean, I don't want to sound ideological, but look at Kwame Nkrumah. Million years ahead of his time. Okay. We are now talking about Africa trade and all of that.
Yes.
I mean, if you read Kwame Nkrumah's book, which he wrote even before he became a prime minister, Africa Must Unite. If you read that book, what is in there was literally a blueprint of what the European community took and has done what they've done. Can you imagine if Africa was united? All of these nonsense about coup d'etats and insurrections and all of that would have been a thing of the past. Just look at how much money Africa, for instance, spends as a continent on, I'll give you examples. The whole of China has one ambassador. Okay, one ambassador to the UN, the whole of China, and they are bigger in population, whatever, in Africa. Africa has how many ambassadors to the UK? To the EU. Okay, that's an example. I'm just giving you an example of things. I mean,
I don't know that you cracked me up.
Yeah. Okay, so and so on and so forth. So if you look at it, every African country has an ambassador to the US. There must be 54 African offices which are embassies with ambassadors. Why?
There's a lot of work to be done, clearly. There's a lot of work to be done in terms of
Yeah, I mean,
I think
let's
having a united front.
Yeah, I know that because out of self-interest, people don't want it. But what I'm saying is that without that, without us really deepening the linkages between countries, integration or whatever, now don't talk about African unity because people are become too settled in their ways. They love the flag, they love all the paraphernalia, everything that can become their president. So I think it's a bit of a push to say they are going to surrender that. But at least serious integration. I mean, Africa, EU can say that, listen, let's have one African foreign minister. And why not? We have 54 African foreign ministers. I mean, typical African country like ours, Ghana, had, I believe, about 350 people attending the COP 27. I mean, that's one country. Multiply that. So, and these are countries we are facing severe economic challenges. So, we ought to get our priorities right.
Yeah, but then again,
and it all starts with leadership. It all starts with leadership.
Do you think we can really achieve a united front as Africans?
I think the generation way before my time, the Kwame Nkrumah generation, this is what was pushing. I think I'm being realistic that people have become set in their own ways. I travel across Africa. And quite frankly, you go to some countries and you say to yourself, on what basis would you say this is a viable nation? Okay. So I'm being realistic that people have become settled in the ways they love being presidents, they love this and that, everything that goes with it, a presidential plane, this and that. And therefore, they are not going to see that. Maybe your generation, who clearly have learned and you are studying the various benefits of having one United States of America, okay, with one ambassador to the UN.
Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully.
Yeah, and I think I hear you, and I think it's important for us to own a part of this mess and not just put it on authority figures, because like we can actually drive change.
No question at all about it.
I wonder in what ways we can actually do this now. So as a businessman and an entrepreneur, what I know for a fact is that there's that need for more investment in young entrepreneurs in Africa. But I think the external investors that fear the unknown, how can we create an ecosystem or a governance platform that will actually support young people in Africa to become better entrepreneurs, to become better leaders, in their own sectors, not necessarily having authority, not necessarily having being in positions of power or authority.
What I'm suggesting to you that it all starts and ends with leadership at the top. If the governance is not right, you may be as talented as you want. You may be God's answer to Bill Gates or whatever, Africa's answer to Bill Gates, okay, or Musk or whatever. But if the environment politically is not right, if the governance does not encourage accountability, responsibility, all of those things which are important, then I'm very sorry to say this, you will not realize your ambition. Because they can affect you with policies which overnight change your sleeping place. So what am I saying? I am saying that focus on the prize, focus on the leadership, and get involved there.
Right. So you're suggesting
I'm suggesting that
most of us
your
go into
generation
public
must
service.
go to public service, not just working for government, but being part of government. When I see you next time, hopefully 5 years from now, I'd like to see you as a finance minister for Nigeria. And why not? People your age are becoming top ministers elsewhere in the world. And you are not studying and being introduced to all of these things. Just go and sit in your quiet corner. I'm saying that it is in you to make a difference. And your children, your grandchildren, your children's children would expect that of you, nothing less. We let Africa down, my generation did. Don't work on our graves. Don't allow that to happen to your generation. That's why I'm calling you to be more activists, not you personally, but use the collective, organize, mobilize, create a movement. It's only when you start that people will see a difference. If you are on your own, you can say anything that you are too much on your own. But there is something that comes, the strength that comes with the collective.
Yeah.
And that's what I think you ought to.
Yeah, thanks for that. And starting from here, or
yeah,
wherever we
absolutely,
are as Africans, but coming together.
Yeah, coming together. Organize, not that you are at Harvard, you have MIT, there, Boston College, all of those things. Reach out to the Africans there, build a society, meet often, debate issues. Okay, link up with institutions back home. There are civil societies back home. We share in that kind of vision. Reach out to the universities. Start a movement. That's why it's called a movement. Move. Because the challenges we face on the continent are so onerous. The headwinds are so strong that it cannot be like business as usual. If we don't confront these things, Africa will continue to lag. And Yesterday I was making a comment, which was a frivolous comment about philosophy or history and all of that. I mean, they make us think. Philosophy, history, they make us think. And Africans will catch up easily. We've got African philosophers who are just as good, if not better, than white. But we dare not be left behind when it comes to technology. We dare not.
Absolutely.
Okay. I mean, look, we were able to leapfrog from no mobile telephony or access to telephony in the villages now to this powerful tool here. But we are being left behind in key areas of technology, teaching, access to IT, access to the internet, all of those things. Because we're pushing governments that way. Go to Rwanda, the whole country is wide up. Okay, so there is leadership in action that you see. So let's just make sure that whatever we do, we are not left behind, and we are being left behind. Our curriculum must change. We have to be more innovative, more creative, and all of that. So the things you are learning here, make sure you find yourself in a position to implement them back home, and you won't do so if you are sitting in your own quiet corner somewhere in Lagos.
Thank you.
Be part of a movement.
Thank you. Thank you. I believe we would definitely leverage the power of technology to improve our economic development, not just in Nigeria, but in other African countries.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, this speech I gave yesterday, I just got a text message from somebody who runs a CEO forum in Ghana, and he put it on that forum, and 250 CEOs in Ghana have read it. I mean, that's the power that social media has.
Yeah.
So we utilize, harness that power to change Africa.
And creates linkages that can also help young people.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sir
My pleasure.
Sam Jonah.
Thank you.
We usually would close with our theme, the Africa we want.
Yeah.
We align with that theme. So in a sentence, I would just like you to say, the Africa I want is.
Well, the Africa I want is one that is very much keeping up pace with developments technologically in the real world also, and keeping pace with what is happening, in the real world. The Africa I want is an Africa which respects institutions, which have strong institutions, and those institutions are respected, because without good institutions, their governance is undermined. The Africa I want is that which respects human rights, which respects the rights of individuals to speak up and be themselves. The Africa I want is for the next generation, this generation, to feel that, oh my God, this is the best thing that ever happened to us being on this continent, because we're doing all the right things. That's the Africa I want.
Thank you so much.